Welcome to the Fuck the Stigma podcast today. I'm here with Breyden. Breyden, we're going to be focusing on the stigmas associated with homelessness.
Fuck the stigma.
Fuck the stigma.
Yes.
So, how have you, kind of want to get right to it, how have you personally experienced the stigmas with homelessness?
You know, man, I was homeless for 4.5 years.
4.5 years?
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
About 3 years ago now.
Okay.
So I've been off the streets and like in stable living for about 3 years now. Just via like treatment centers and sober livings one way or another. There's like a flop house or two, but
yeah.
Different institutions, you know, like jails and prison and stuff like that. Even like when I was actually homeless, like had no address, the only roof that I ever had over my head like was whenever I got busted for like a week or two or a month, and then I started doing prison time.
When you were homeless, were you grateful for the times that you were incarcerated?
In a sense, I would say towards the end. It's actually a really good question, because towards the end it definitely kind of got like that, to where as soon as I got in the back of the cop car, I had the cuffs on and I was just like, oh my God, thank God.
Thank God.
Because it's a struggle.
Yeah, I've always thought about it. Like when I grew up, like seeing homeless people, like say like panhandling, I'm like, why don't they? The first thought that crossed my mind was like, why don't they get arrested? Because they get fed, they have a bed.
No, that's also, yeah, that's a really good thought. It's a really good point. You know, there are people who they'll like kind of turn themselves in because they don't want to be on the streets. Like they will do something crazy during like the winter time, like when it's raining or it's really cold out. But other than that, like I was like fully strung out. So like, would I rather have a roof over my head or would I rather have my dope?
Yeah.
I would rather have my dope.
Yeah.
So I would say that like, I don't know, but it was like kind of love-hate. It was like a good and bad. Like I was like relieved that I didn't have to go and like put in that work every day and stress on, you know, what am I going to do for some money today? And like,
what kind of things would you do for money?
Oh my gosh, everything underneath the sun.
Like what?
I went through different phases. I was talking to somebody a couple days ago. It was actually, I was talking to somebody a couple days ago and they were like, have you ever like been in the trash can? Like there's good ass shit. So I was like, I had my trash can phase. Like, there's different like phases, you know? And, when I first started living on the streets, I vividly and specifically remember I was like, I had a check from this telemarketing place that I was working at. I got kicked out of the sober living and like I went to work for another few more days, whatever it was. I finished off the week until I could get my check, my last check. Okay. And then I just bounced. I never went back to work. Cashed the check, had all my bags with me, and I was on the streets. All that money ran out. And I remember like doing the last of what I had and like looking up like at the people around me, and I was like, yo, like, what do you guys do for money, man?
Okay.
And this guy was like, all right, like just kick it, you know, because they were kind of like timid or like paranoid as to like, because I was new like in the area and on the streets, and so they like weren't really sure of me yet, so they weren't going to show me.
So it's like you kind of have to
things.
trust the other people around.
That's how they were, and
yeah.
And you know, I can probably kind of say that's kind of how I ended up turning out to be. But I don't know, various things, you know, you can recycle. There are people that go, and I'm sure you've seen it, especially here in LA, they're digging through trash cans, pulling out cans and bottles,
and go to the recycling place to sell it.
You can, I remember another big thing was like receipts. You pick up cash receipts off the ground. You go in like to the Walmart parking lot and you'll find like cash receipts, and you look at the items on the receipt, and then you go into the Walmart and you steal the items, and then you take it to the fucking thing, and then they give you cash. You're like, oh, like, yeah, I don't need these hangers anymore, or, you know, this food item anymore, whatever it is. And then they give you like a gift card or cash, essentially. You can do that. You can get into like more hefty things like stealing cars, like breaking into cars, like finding whatever valuables.
You start getting extremely resourceful. And it was like most of the money you got when being homeless was to kind of like feed your drug addiction.
100%.
Yeah.
There was like a time where And it was like when I was fairly new on the streets, I'd say probably within like my first year of living on the streets, where any money that I did get was like, okay, I gotta buy my dope first, and then like I also have to make sure I have enough for a cheap motel tonight. You know, like $80, like whatever it was, like $70 like for a motel that night. And then I was like, why am I spending? I can just go steal a tent from Walmart and like go pop the tent somewhere, you know, and then I can use that $70 for my dope.
Yeah.
You know, and so it kind of got to that point. But LA is actually really crazy. And I remember tripping out at first because there are different like stores, whether it's like a smoke shop, whether it's just like another like kind of mom and pop, like privately owned like store. Well, they will buy stuff from you out the back door. And then,
what do you mean by that?
So I can go and steal a bunch of like Red Bulls or hygiene products or like cold and medicine, like different ibuprofen, whatever, over the counter things. It got to like, you could even, once you get in with them, you could take a list like, hey, what do you need? And I'll go steal it, and then I'll go back to them and I'll go to the back door and they will pay me half price for whatever it's worth on the shelf.
So they just help like the community around out.
I mean, I guess essentially you can look at it like that. Yeah. You know, and in downtown LA, it's cracking too. It's like crazy in downtown LA. I used to get on the train and go sell Tide Pods.
Tide Pods.
So the Tide Pods, like for your laundry detergent. In what is it? Echo Park. At the Red Line, right outside the train station, there's like a bunch of Latinos. Like it's generally like Latinos like out there, like, and they have like blankets or carts and stands set up where they're selling stuff. Yeah. They're like selling earphones, like Bluetooth speakers, like shoes, clothes. Then you go to the next one down and it's like all hygiene and laundry detergent and toothpaste, whatever you need is right there. And it's the same type of deal. They'll buy it from me half price. I just have to go farther for that.
Yeah. With the downtown, like with the LA homelessness, like it kind of blew my mind.
It's insane.
Yeah. Because I came from North Carolina and it's just like, yeah, you'll see some, but like, when I went to LA, it was like, wow. And it's a really big issue, like the percentage of like homeless people out here.
Oh yeah. And the vast majority of it, and you see it all the time, and a lot of people chop it up to like addiction or like, oh, they're just out of their mind on drugs. That might be a part of it, but like the main contributing factor is their mental illness, their untreated mental illness. For sure. And then they couple that with whatever drug or drugs they're using, you know, and it's like really sad, you know, but a lot of people will say like, oh, they're all addicts. Yeah. And I feel like that's like a stigma too. I met so many people who didn't drink, who didn't smoke. I didn't kick it with them regularly. Now, mind you, like I was kicking it with like some really bad people, but like I met a lot of people on the streets during that period. They didn't drink alcohol. They didn't smoke no weed. They didn't do nothing, no drugs. They were just homeless and down bad and off their luck. And they just learned how to survive on the street. And they just panhandle and they get their little money and they got their little setup and they go and they sleep and they do this and, you know, and it's crazy, you know.
Yeah, homelessness isn't exclusive to addicts.
No, it's not. 100%.
Like most of us addicts that like say we're going into recovery, we're like, I'm not homeless, you know, like they kind of just like stigmatize homeless people. Like those are the addicts, not me. I still have things. Yeah. Yeah. And I wanted to ask, like, how did you end up being homeless?
You know, I came out here for treatment when I was about 18. I was a little bit closer to 19, I believe, and 19 years old. And I was living in a sober living, essentially. I graduated a treatment center, completed the program, and I went to a sober living right here in the Valley in Van Nuys. After that, because I was still like doing outpatient for a little bit, and then like I finished that and I had to leave their facility. My insurance like dropped me and they were like, you need to leave.
Yeah, like go, fuck you.
Yeah. which that's fucked up too, because that's like a really big thing. As soon as your insurance drops you, they just kick you out.
It's more of like most treatment centers are more in it for the money than like the well-being of the client.
Yep. Luckily I had a good sponsor at that time. He helped me get into another sober living in Northridge. I like didn't have a job at that time. Like I was just barely looking for work. And then they were like, you have to go. You can't stay here anymore. Your insurance is no longer valid, or they're not paying anymore, and they dropped your benefits, so you have to go. And I was like freaking out. And I don't know, I probably had like 20 days, 30 days, something like that, clean. And I was like freaking out, and I called my sponsor, and I was like, yo, like, what am I going to do? Like, they're kicking me out. I'm going to be on the streets and blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And he was like, listen here, son. He's like, that's not going to happen. You know, he's like, you know, and he talked to me kind of like about my faith and stuff, and how I could kind of like use that to help get me through. And so I did. And I had gotten a job lined up. I started working, but I was waiting on a paycheck. But he was able to help get me into like just like a regular, like a sober living, like not connected to any other facility, like outpatient, like insurance, nothing. It was like just pay $800 a month for rent, and you know, you stay here and you work and do your chore and whatever, and you go to meetings, get your meeting slip signed. And that was in Northridge, and I was living there for a minute. It was co-ed. And the thing with like addiction and like addicts is like when we come into recovery, right, a lot of the times, now that like I don't have that drug anymore, I'm not getting loaded anymore, I'm not drinking, I'm not whatever, naturally, like I'm inclined, and almost subconsciously, like for me, I've noticed it's like almost subconscious, automatically I go to start finding that next thing that you want to like just obsess over. Yeah, for sure. We all do it. Make me feel better, fill that hole. And for me, it was women. Mm-hmm. And so here comes like a blonde hair, blue eyed, like she just moved in, like a couple weeks sober too. And I fell in love, started spending all my time with her, and I was working and making a little bit of money, but like I wasn't doing anything. I was just like buying shoes and taking her out and like paying my rent, and that was it. So
your life was, I work to hang out with my girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's what that was at that time for me. Yeah, mm-hmm. It's a really good way of putting it. Therefore, since I had no program, and essentially I look at it like I was in active addiction.
Yeah.
It just wasn't heroin anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't meth anymore.
It was the person.
It was this girl. And so I was obsessing over her, and I remember that sober living gave me and her it's kind of crazy, but it is what it is. They gave us they disciplined us. We were like late for curfew. We were sitting in the backyard past curfew. We were supposed to be inside in our rooms.
Interesting.
We were out there like past midnight smoking a cigarette in the backyard, and they locked the doors on us. They let us back in the first time. The second time, like the next day or a couple days later, happened to us again. They locked the doors on us, and in the morning they were like, your discipline, your consequence is going to be a 3-day out.
3-day out?
Yeah. You got to go for 3 days. Pack a bag and find somewhere to go for 3 days. And it was just me and her
just on the streets. You guys,
so I was working. She wasn't. I was working. I was making some pretty cool money. I was making commission plus hourly at that telemarketing place. So like I got us a hotel room like in North Hills, which I don't know if you know much about North Hills, but it's like I was a
pizza delivery driver for a little bit, and I hated delivering to North Hills.
It's not good. Like Sepulveda and Roscoe specifically is like where I, for some reason, I don't know if because it was cheap. I don't know what I was thinking. I also didn't really know much, like super about the area. I mean, I could tell it wasn't the best just by like looking and being there. But anyways, that's where I decided to get us a motel room at for the 3 days. And it was just me and her, and left to our own devices, we ended up getting high. And, you know, we're justifying each other's bullshit and this and that. And like I had the idea, like, look, like they didn't give us the 3-day out for getting high. They give us the 3-day out because we're late for curfew. They're not going to drug test us when we go back in a couple days. So we're good. We can get away with it. No one's going to know. It's just me and you. We can do this, that, whatever, you know? And she, like, by like that 3rd day, like the night before, she was like, I can't do it. I can't go back. They're going to drug test us. My parents are going to find out, blah, blah, blah. And so she just didn't even go back. She went somewhere else. And I was like, you're fucking crazy, dude. I'm going back. Like, they're not going to drug test us. So I went back and they had a cup waiting for me. And I was like, ooh. I was like, I'm not going to pass that. And so they're like, okay, you know, thanks for being honest. But 3 more days.
3 more days out?
3 more days out. And they said, come back and pee clean and you can continue to stay here. And I was like, okay. And so this is where things kind of like, you know, start getting, I don't know. I don't really know what to call it, but like, I guess maybe a little interesting. Like this is where things like really started in a sense. I end up catching like a case of the fuck it's and like a huge resentment towards AA and like essentially like the rooms. I was like, fuck all those people. You know, they told that I go to meetings and I hear them talk about, you know, how they're going to be of service and do this, that, and the third, and they'll help anybody out. And so like, I remember I was like walking down the street and I got after they said 3 more days, I left the house and I was like walking down the street and I was on the phone with my sponsor. I had like all my bags with me and he's like, you know, it's going to be okay. Like, go ahead and call people, start calling some people. Cause I had been going like to the rooms. I had been going to meetings. Like I had commitments. I wasn't super big in my step work, but like I was a meeting attender. I definitely like went to meetings and I was like meeting some people and I took numbers. And I was like building some relationships, I guess you could say. And like I said, I had commitments and stuff. So some people knew me and he was like, that's what he suggested. He said, why don't you call some people? And he lived in Venice on the west side. So I was, I couldn't really stay with him, you know, and, I was like looking for somewhere to stay for a couple days and I was like calling and they're like, nah, like, I can't do that. You said you got high. I can't do that. Nah, sorry, bro. Just person after person, no answer, person after person. No. And I was like getting progressively more and more resentful. And I was like calling people while I was just kind of like roaming about. And I remember I was at the Orange Line in Reseda. And I was like sitting there and like I had all my bags with me. And I was like, I had my phone plugged in. I was like charging my phone into the thing. And one last person was like, bro, like, nah, I can't do that, dude. Like, you know, you got high. Like I had like leprosy or something.
Yeah, there's a stigma with like, oh, you got high, I need help. You know, like nobody's helping you out because you got loaded, and they're like, oh, I can't. Ooh. And
it's just like crazy. It's like super crazy to me that like that like those were the answers that I was getting. And I guess I can understand maybe, but at the same time, it's like, I know people today who, when somebody gets high and they need somewhere to go, they'll let them sleep on the couch and they'll watch them. I mean, of course, these are people with recovery, not just clean time.
Yeah.
These are people with recovery that will allow that, you know? And for me, like, I look at it like that's a direct reflection of those people's recovery. You know, they might have had a couple years, however many cakes, but essentially they had no recovery.
For sure.
You know?
So after all of that, you ended up just staying on the streets.
Yeah, I was like, I remember sitting there and I got that last no, and I was like, man, fuck! Like, fuck this. And I like looked to my left, my right, and there's like some bum like tweaking out. And I was like, hey, bro, what's up, dude? Like, where is it at? And I like got high with him and it was just like a wrap from there. Yeah. You know, all those bags that I had with me slowly dwindled away. Everything got stolen. I've literally had everything, even the clothes off my back stolen from me multiple times throughout those years.
Really?
Yeah, that's a fun little story too. That day, that was crazy. And it's like crazy, you know, but the thing about perspective is like such a beautiful thing, right? Because I can have shit don't mean shit. And it doesn't mean shit to me today because I've lost it so many times and I know it's going to come right back. I have so much clothes today, I don't even know what to do with.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
so it's like the material things don't really matter to you as much.
Nah, they don't. So like,
I feel like that's kind of a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of people out here nowadays just really care about material things. Like, oh, I have this new pair of shoes, and like all of that. And we just kind of like forget about the feelings and the connection with a person. But then we prevent ourselves from building really good connections with people because we're not like truly being ourselves and authentic.
Yeah, 100%.
What kind of stigmas did you experience on a daily basis being homeless?
A whole lot of, I would say, like just super being treated poorly, ignored, like I wasn't even there.
How so?
So there was like, you know, there were times where, you know, maybe I couldn't really steal from a store. And so I found myself panhandling. It was just like, you know, kind of like down bad, needed some money. And so I would stand out, you know, there was some hot spots that I knew like where I would end up making some money in comparison to other places where people were not going to hand me any money at all. But a lot of the times while I'm standing there for the hour, couple hours, asking for $1 or any change, just completely get ignored because I'm asking for money. And that's
the way society, that's the way society treats homeless people. Just like, oh, I don't see you.
Yep.
You're not there. I don't want to look at you or that.
Yep.
But sadly, I am guilty of it. Like I'm guilty of that stigmatization. Like I have in the past, just like, I just didn't want to look. I don't know why. It's just like, that's just the way I grew up. Like say like my parents driving by somebody who's homeless, they do the same thing. What am I gonna do? Yeah, what I'm taught to do. And it's just like today I didn't even realize I was doing that until like we had that conversation the other day. And it's just like they're people too. They just happen to not have a home.
And that's what would piss me off so much is because and I think I mentioned that the other day when I brought that up, and it's like that's what would piss me off so much because it's like, really, you're not gonna make eye contact with me, you're not gonna tell me no, I'm sorry, like I don't feel comfortable, you know, this is how I feel like maybe you would, you know, you're gonna kill yourself with it, maybe like, or no, like, hey bro, like I need money too, like I'm broke, I'm coming here to get like this and it's like the last of my money or something. Like have a conversation with me, talk to me, say something to me.
Like at the end of the day you wanted to be acknowledged.
Yes, at the very least. At the absolute very least. I can completely understand the fact that you don't have enough money to give me money. That's totally understandable, you know, but at least say so. You know, don't just like literally just like not even look at me and just walk right past me. You know, but like, I don't know what's worse. I kind of want to say even worse. There were times where I'd be flying. They call it flying, where you're panhandling with a sign, flying a sign on like an off ramp or something. And when they come and they stop at the thing, at the light or the stop sign or whatever, and they stop and they're waiting for the light to change, and I'm standing there, they like look over and they lock their doors. They roll up their window. They'll put their purse in the back seat. Damn. You know, it's crazy.
Fuck, not the locking doors.
The locking doors.
Dude.
And it's like, just like that judgment, like right off the bat, that like I'm going to do something crazy, you know? But like at the same time, I knew a guy who would get all crazy. Like he was so nuts. I knew a guy who would be on the off ramp, like setting up like nails, like where he thinks they're gonna come, like their tire, like so he would get nails in their tires. He was so nuts. He got arrested. That's all he would get arrested for, is for like acting crazy on the off ramp. He would like be like trying to hit their cars, and like if they didn't give him money, he would freak out on them, you know. And I feel like that's what messes it up for like that's what messes it up for like the people who are not gonna do that.
I was thinking, I had an experience. We went to 7-Eleven and I was with a friend, and we saw a homeless lady right by the 7-Eleven. We were like, oh, let's go get her some food. Got her fruit and water, something light, you know? And like she completely like rejected it. And then like was kind of like just like putting her hand up as in like, get away from me, like I don't want to see you or look at you. She was like doing what I guess has been done to her to us by somebody who's trying to help her. And then we were like, okay, and then we started pulling off, waiting for like a clearing in the traffic, and she just like started hitting the car, and I was like, fuck. So like experiences like that kind of make you look at the whole of homelessness and homeless people as like, I don't think I'm gonna help out. You know, but that's where like mental health and mental illness comes in as well. And it's just like, it's not good for your mental health to just be out on the streets all day and every day.
No, it's not.
It has an effect on it. And then like we don't recognize that or acknowledge it or even think about it sometimes.
You know, but that's what I think is like so dope about like recovery, because being in recovery, like for myself also, is that like I'm able to obtain like a different perspective through like, you know, working a program. I'm like able to obtain like, you know, a different point of view on like what happened and like what was, you know, instead of that distorted, you know, like what I was telling myself, like as to what happened, you know, try to see all angles.
For sure.
You know? It's like maybe those people who looked away from me had an experience like you had, or like maybe they encountered that guy that was like trying to throw rocks at their car because they said no to him, and they just like were like, okay, like you like look homeless, and you know, like, so it is understandable. But at the same time, like I still think that for myself, I still think that, you know, that shit needs to be broken.
Definitely. It
needs to be broken. And homelessness is a very large and big problem. It's out of mine and yours hands, essentially, in the grand scheme of things. It is. But a good friend of mine told me an analogy, and it's I think it's a well-known one. It's the man like throwing the fish back in the ocean or something. There's a certain kind of fish that migrate at a certain time of year. And one way or another, that they all like, and I think I'm butchering this, they all get washed up on the shore, and there's like millions of them on the shore, on the beach. And you know, he's picking them up one by one, trying to throw them back in, but the more the waves come, they're coming right back up on the shore. And some other guy comes walking by, and he's like, hey dude, what are you doing? He's like, I'm trying to help him. And he picks one up and he throws it in. And he's like, dude, you're never going to get them all. You might as well just quit, bro. Like, just stop. And he's like, that's not true. Boom, I saved that one. You know, and he picks up another one and he chucks that one back in. He's like, I just saved another one. I got that one out pretty far. You know, picks up another one. And so like every like little one counts.
Yes.
In a sense, you know.
That's actually really good at like little analogy type thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you after who told me that. I mean, I don't know if you can guess it or not, but it's a really good one, you know. And it's true. It's like
it is really hard, like overall, say with somebody who just works a normal full-time job, and like we kind of want to say they want to make a difference and impact on like the homelessness situation. It's definitely gonna start off small. Like we're not gonna attack that problem as a whole like immediately and really fast. Like it just starts with like that one person. And it's the same with like breaking the stigmas with like that one person, the way we view homelessness and homeless people.
And now, mind you, let's look at this side of things, right? That guy who was doing that crazy shit on the off ramp, did he just automatically right away just start acting crazy on the off ramp?
No.
He had been on the streets way longer than I had been on the streets. How much differently has he been treated throughout those years? More than I had, you know, or other people. What has happened to him?
Yeah.
You know, how did he get to that point? Because they would shun him, because they wouldn't look at him, because they wouldn't acknowledge him, because they, you know, whatever. And so essentially it's like, you know, doing what you and I can on our own individual parts to prevent an individual from getting to that point, to where they're acting crazy, trying to break your window at the off ramp.
Exactly.
You know, because you won't look at them, or you tell them no, you don't have no change or no money. You know, I mean, who am I to say this? But like, maybe that guy could have been saved from getting to that point.
Possibly. There's always that chance. But it's like, that's your story. That's what happened. And like, you've learned and experienced that. And like, now you can help the next one. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, and since I know what it's like to like be in their shoes, to be on the streets, to be freezing cold at night, to sleep on the concrete. I don't know if you've ever slept on the concrete. It gets really cold at about 1 to 2 in the morning. There's just something about that time change and that hour. The cement gets really cold, but cardboard surprisingly does really good at separating you from that, and does all right if that's all you have, and it's easy to come by also. But where was I getting ready to go with that? It's like since I know what it's like to be in their shoes, you know, today I definitely like acknowledge like homeless people. Like, people ask me for money all the time. I'm like, hey bro, I need money too, dog. Think you can give me $1? You know, and I acknowledge them, and I make eye contact with them. And even if they're not asking me for money, like, I still like will acknowledge and make eye contact, and, you know, say hi and stuff.
Like, what's your name?
Yeah, hey, what's your name?
That's been my thing recently.
Is what's your name?
Yeah, like, I just want, like, let me get to know you a little bit. Yeah. I've had not every experience with homeless people with me has been bad. Like, I've truly have had real, genuine, sincere conversations with people. There was somebody who I remember, her name was, I think I was talking about this with Maddie. Her name was Erica. And she was outside of a 7-Eleven, and she was like, she complimented our shoes. I was like, oh, thank you. And like, she was in the program of recovery, and like, she was like, it failed me. It doesn't work for me. It's not for me. And it's just like, fuck, you know? And I'm like, I'm in it, and I think it works. I just think you have to, there's a lot that has to change and be done. Yeah. It's definitely good to get to know them, because you never know. Yeah. You know, you never know what you might be able to do for that person, for that individual, and what that little interaction, you know, you don't know how big it is to them. You know, whether or not you interact with them. That's my favorite, is when people, whether they're homeless or not, whatever, just anybody in general is like, oh, I did that, and it doesn't work. And it's like, oh, you did it. What step did you make it to? And it was usually 4.
And they're like, oh, like, I like was doing 4, you know, like, oh, I did 1, 2, and 3. Yeah. And it's like, oh, so you're telling me you didn't make it through all 12 steps? Oh, so you're telling me you didn't sponsor somebody? How long did you stay clean for? I was like 3 months. Like, I got like 3 months. It's like, oh, so you didn't even make it like the year? You didn't even try to get a cake? So how do you know it works or not for you? You know, once you do those 3 things, you complete the 12 steps, you sponsor somebody else, and you at least get a year, that's when you can truly say whether or not it works for you. You know, because that like is it. That's like the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
The bread and butter.
It's the bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I love hitting people with that. And then they're always like, oh, whoa. Like, they have nothing to say, though.
Did you have anything else you wanted to share today on the podcast? Any other stigmas?
You know, be kind to homeless people. Because, like, coming from that, right? And it's like, look at me today. You know, today I have a full-time job. I'm trusted, like, at that full-time job. And I'm valued. And even, like, before my homelessness, I had a full-time job. And I was valued at that job also. You know? And I have a mom, and I have a dad, and I have a sister. You know, and I had like relationships, and like I have friends and like family also, you know. So like, we're all the same.
Homeless people are human too.
Human beings.
Human beings.
You know, they have feelings as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just like you never know. there's another individual like in the community that I'm in that I was actually like on the streets with, and she's killing the game now too, and like for me, like it started with somebody like giving me essentially like a chance, somebody reaching out their hand. I mean, of course, coupled with like desperation that like kind of got me out of that homelessness and stuff and living on the streets. But like same thing like with her, like that's all it takes is a helping hand, like just that chance, being given that chance.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're fucking here. I'm glad you spoke with me up today on the podcast. I'm glad you got to share your story.
Oh yeah, it's
a
an
little
honor.
bit, and kind of bring the awareness of what it's like to be homeless and like the experiences you've had.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Breyden.
Hell yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was that a remix? Hell yeah.
That was a good one.
That's dope, dude.